No matter what, sequels are always going to be compared to the original installment, and Halloween 2 is no different. It is, in many ways, the greatest continuation. It is an amalgamation of what made Halloween 78 great and what made the later installments great.
What's going on out here?
Call the police. Tell the sheriff I shot him.
Who?
Tell him he's still on the loose.
Is this some kind of joke? I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight.
You don't know what death is.
Halloween 2, directed by Rick Rosenthal. Guys, Halloween 2 is the movie that made Michael Myers an icon. I'll say it now and I'll say it till the cows come home. I think Halloween 2 is the movie that put Dr. Loomis and Michael Myers over the edge and truly made them iconic. I mean, when people think of Michael Myers, a lot of images, a lot of scenes come to mind. One of them is the blood trickling down Myers' eyes in the hospital scene in the third act of this movie, Halloween 2. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me give a quick synopsis for the people who haven't seen Halloween 2. I know they're very few and far between, especially if you're watching this video. Halloween 2, set on the same night as Halloween 1978, the original installment, picks up right where that movie left off. Michael Myers just got shot 6 times by his doctor, Dr. Loomis. Michael fell over the balcony, but now he is missing. Michael Myers is loose in Haddonfield, killing anybody and everyone. He is pursuing Laurie Strode, the main protagonist, the final girl of the original installment. He follows her all the way to a hospital where this movie primarily takes place for good and for worse. Main gripes of this movie are Laurie is in a hospital and she's sidelined, basically. Those are the main gripes that come to mind when thinking of Halloween 2. Laurie has nothing to do. She kind of is a sideline character, not to mention the horrible wig that they made Jamie Lee Curtis wear in this installment. But let's talk about Dr. Loomis. Dr. Loomis really comes into his own in this film. Not that he wasn't already his own character and his iconic character in the first installment, but in Halloween 2, we pick right up and Dr. Loomis is crazy. He is all batshit crazy Dr. Loomis that we know from the later installments. I mean, this movie starts off with Dr. Loomis' great line to the neighbor next door. You don't know what death is. And he just goes throughout the night and he's just dropping line after line and he bosses people around and he's that crazy Dr. Loomis that we all have come to love. When he's stealing guns off of cops, ordering helpless people around, victims around, telling them that the evil is here, the evil is coming. And he does that all in Halloween 2, guys. This is the movie that made Dr. Loomis a household name and Michael Myers a household name. If we didn't get Halloween 2, I'm sure Michael Myers and Dr. Loomis would have went on to be famous icons in horror, sure. But Halloween 2 gave us a famous encounter between the two in the hospital. Now, a lot of people say that the hospital was a pretty boring and mundane setting, but it was pretty creepy in my eyes, and the words that come to mind are atmospheric, brooding. John Carpenter made the original installment to be brooding, to be atmospheric, and Halloween 2 does just that, and that is where the other installments and sequels fail. None of them past Halloween 2 really seem to capture that ethereal Myers, that otherworldly Myers, that evil. The other installments kind of just treated him as a Freddy or a Jason, where he's there and he hits his beats that he needs to hit. He gets in stride for the story. He's where he needs to be when he needs to be there. But he's just there to kill people and move the story forward. In Halloween 2 and the original, I feel as though Myers is more than just a killer, more than just a slasher. He is more than just a villain. He is a feeling. He is a sense of dread, and anywhere he is, the sense of dread follows. The moment Myers steps foot into the hospital, the whole atmosphere, the whole vibe changes. That is due in part to the directing of Rick Rosenthal, I'm sure. And let's not forget to mention Dick Warlock. Nick Castle didn't come back to play the Shape in the 1981 film. Instead, Dick Warlock, the stuntman himself, was Myers. He is more of a robotic Myers. You guys know what I mean. You've seen Halloween 2, where Myers kind of moves very stiff, but that adds to that ethereal nature that I just brought up. And it is pretty cool to see the mannerisms that Dick Warlock adds on to the Shape that Nick Castle has brought to the limelight. We have some amazing kills in Halloween 2. They actually used blood in this installment. In 1978, it is notorious that there was no blood used on the movie. The only little trickle of blood that there is when Laurie gets her arm stabbed or slashed. And in this movie, they used a little bit more blood. Not as much blood as, say, a Jason or a later installment Halloween movie, but there is blood in this movie, and that was a call from Rick Rosenthal. Some kills I want to point out are the hot tub scene in the basement of the hospital when that woman gets burned alive, boiled alive in the hot tub, and Myers is just holding her head under the water, and it's just brutal. It's just a brutal scene. Not to mention the inclusion and death of Ben Tramer, the character that was mentioned in the first Halloween, when he gets plowed by a cop car and absolutely set ablaze. That is something that needs to be mentioned because it's something that I think about every time I think about Halloween 2. Overall, this review has been pretty positive so far, but I would be lying if I said that Halloween 2 is an installment that I continuously revisit, especially during the Halloween season. I can't say that if I was left the option of which installment I want to watch in the Halloween franchise, I can't say I would pick Halloween 2. Maybe that's because the plot is kind of slow. Maybe that is because the hospital scenes drag out. Laurie is kind of sidelined. Halloween 2 is a great atmospheric movie. Don't get me wrong, it's a great horror movie, especially for the time period. But I think that it suffers from a lack of direction, a lack of story. Not direction by Rick Rosenthal, but direction story-wise. It is on record that John Carpenter wrote Halloween 2's script with a 6-pack of beers, and he was not looking forward to doing it. He thought that the Shape story was over. He thought there was nothing left to say or do with these characters in this town of Haddonfield, Illinois. Nonetheless, the studio kind of coerced him into doing Halloween 2, and that is why we got the sister storyline. I mean, I'm not really a fan of the sister storyline. I don't think that it serves the story. I don't think that it adds to the mystique of Myers or the triumph or the tribulations of the victim, Laurie Strode, the final girl. I don't think that was necessary. And I'm glad they retconned it in the newest trilogy. And I hope moving forward with Halloween and Michael Myers related media, we just get rid of the Laurie Strode, Michael Myers sibling aspect. I'm sure a lot of people love that and they want that in a Halloween movie because, well, they're nostalgic for it. Like I said, I don't think it serves the story, and it's kind of just thrown in this movie at the end just to have a twist or to have some sort of plot. The only other plot that's in this movie is the dream sequences, I guess you could call them, or the dreamscapes. The mention of the subconscious. Loomis mentions the subconscious multiple times in this movie, mentioning that the true horror of Halloween is the subconscious mind. He says that in the third act. And we get these images in Laurie's dreams of a young Michael. And of course, we have the Mr. Sandman song that plays in the beginning and the end of this movie, alluding to the subconscious mind and the darkness that looms there and the unknown. But yeah, besides that little hint of a story, that little hint of a subtext to the subconscious mind and some psychology behind this movie. It's just a fun slasher, and if I had to rate it, I would give it a 5 out of 10. It is the middle of the road when it comes to the Halloween franchise, I would say. That's just my thoughts, though. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. This has been my review of Halloween 2. I am not the biggest fan of this movie. I do love how it continues 1978's story, and it is a perfect double feature when watching the original. But yeah, it is spooky season. It is October 30th at the time of recording this. Tomorrow's Halloween. I hope everybody has a happy Halloween. That leaves one question left to be asked. I've been Maximus Cardillo. Are you not entertained?